Is this a familiar story? You bought the shiny Eorzea encyclopedia. You get all warm and snuggly in your Final Fantasy XIV baseball jacket, all ready for a good read and to be shown wonders of the world. Only to try reading and you found it too wordy. The font size is way too small. The background texture is too textured. Or you simply felt it was hard to connect the world lore with the actual places in the game. Well, Love Letters to Hydaelyn is here to solve all of that. This is where we connect the world lore of Final Fantasy XIV from the text to the game. Join me in this quest to discover the stories behind her places, her people, her best scenery spots, and sometimes even connections back to our heritage in 1.0. Today we are traveling to Middle La Noscea, but before I start, remember to stay till the end for a list of my own recommendations of the best scenery spots and a beautiful time lapse. Without a doubt, the most important lore location here is Galadion Bay, which is located at... Wait a minute, where is Galadion Bay? When it comes to Middle La Noscea, it is indeed fitting to start with Galadion Bay. Probably the most significant landmark on this map, and no doubt the bay is mentioned in the very first line of the encyclopedia's description. Known for its rolling hills, Middle La Noscea borders Galadion Bay. The bay's significance stems from the story of how Limsa Lominsa came to be. The modern settlers of Limsa Lominsa actually came from way up north, and they were a group of mainly Rogadins escaping after a failed coup against a tyrant in their homeland of Arslan. Galadion was the ship in which they sailed their escape on, and they sailed south. Eventually, however, Galadion met the navigator's fury, which is Eorzean speak for fury and anger of the sea and wind. It ran aground on the shores of Vilbrand, and the region of the land where the ship made landfall came to be known as Galadion Bay. The word Galadion is also used in the Galadion Accord, which is a treaty established by Admiral Morwhip that binded all of Limsa's pirate crews to Limsa Lominsa's grand company, the Maelstrom. This accord unified all Lominsian forces under her command, and it pays a nice tribute back to the very first ship of the Limsa Lominsa thalassocracy. If we take a short trip back to the 5th Astral Era, that saw the rise of magic, by the way, the bay was then known as the Bay of Nim, which makes sense as the ancient city of Nim is found in another part of La Noscea. But of course, this is a video for next time. Anyway, with its historical importance, I eagerly set out to find Galadion Bay. However, there is no such indication that such a bay exists in 2.0's version of Middle La Noscea. In the encyclopedia, Galadion Bay is classified under the Southern Zephyr Drift area, which does exist. However, I flew above all the waters on this map, and there was not a single place that triggered the area text Galadion Bay. I was stumped, and I triple-checked that I wasn't reading the encyclopedia wrong, but thanks to the Speakers Network, I learned that Middle La Noscea never existed in 1.0. Rather, it was carved out of what used to be a much bigger, lower La Noscea. 1.0's map actually has Galadion Bay written on it, and it definitely points to the waters west of where Middle La Noscea is in 2.0. Significant portions of both the north and south land masses that demarcated the bay seems to have been destroyed when Bahamut wrecked the land in the most recent calamity. This explains why the bay is not as obvious to a 2.0 player. This is my guess of where the northern landmass of the bay might have been. The southern landmass, however, would fall under Lower La Noscea. Interestingly, Galadion's Bay Area Text can still be triggered on one of the La Nocean maps, but you'll have to stick around for a future video to find out which one and where. And no, it isn't in Lower La Noscea. But well, those of you who already know can probably spoil it in the comments, since spoiler protection for 2.0 has probably worn out 10 years ago. Next up, ever wondered how the Thagran and the Nevelle checkpoints got their names? Well, going back to the 1.0 map, Middle La Noscea is literally the middle landmass in all of La Noscea, connecting Limsa to both eastern and western La Noscea as we know it today. As an adventurer, should you take the Thagran East Road or the Nevelle West Road? Well, that depends if you like wine or ale. The Thagran East Road paves the way to Wineport in the east, while the Nevelle West Road leads the way to, you guessed it, Aleport in the west. Today, the Thagran checkpoint still leads east in a similar manner to that of the 1.0 map. But the Nevelle checkpoint now also leads east towards Wineport. The checkpoint position leading east is likely due to how close the new Castrum Occidens, built after the Calamity, is to Wineport. Although it now leads east, the Nevelle checkpoint may have just very well taken its name after the Nevelle West Road that is near it. But wait a minute, I didn't truly explain where these names came from, did I? Well, it goes back to the Galadion once again. For when they made landfall, the Galadion carried two Elysian helmsmen, Jean de Nevelle, a navigator, and Guy Le Thagran, an adventurer. These two were entrusted with the task of checking out La Noscea to see if it was a good place for them to start their life anew. No guesses for who went which direction, though. Interestingly, the Galadion crew were also the ones that gave the land La Noscea its very name. They had named the initial village they established on land La Noscea. There was a fellow loadsman on the ship who perished to scurvy just 2 days before landfall. And I'm inferring from the name of Guy Le Thagran that La Noscea was the surname of that loadsman. The story of Loadsman La Noscea leads us nicely right into the next landmark of this map, the Seasong Grotto, which is exactly as its name suggests, a grotto in which a requiem for sailors, a sea song, is carved onto a large stone monolith.
I am the waves that bear, I am the winds that guide, I am the evening stars, I am the morning sky, I am born of the sea, and there shall I die.
My own interpretation is that it pays a tribute to all souls lost at sea. But if you started out in Limsa, you would hear Yastola's interpretation of it as part of the MSQ.
Thus reads the sailor's requiem, carved into yonder stone. Such words well describe the manner in which the citizens of Limsa Lominsa live their lives. It is both a litany against misfortune for those out on the waves, and a prayer that the souls of those who perish on land might find their way back to the sea.
Regardless of whether it's more of a litany, a requiem, or both, the Seasong Grotto is perhaps the perfect place for such a tribute of words, considering how Limsa Lominsa's aristocracy today began from Galadion Bay. We can't possibly leave Middle La Noscea without talking about Summerford Farms. This is just my own interpretation, but I think the farm wasn't always a farm, as it seems like it's located at where Camp Bearded Rock in 1.0 used to be. And I'm choosing to mention Camp Bearded Rock because this would be the first memorable camp 1.0 sprouts would encounter if they started in Limsa. If you're curious about the name of the camp, do check out the link to the speakers network above. Since piracy was outlawed by Admiral Merwip, she also has in place a settlement initiative in which former pirates are encouraged to settle down as farmers, I guess. You can get a sense of how well the pirate farmer conversion is going on here, much to the chagrin of the actual botanists trying to run the farm. Many of them are larking around, and some of them even profess that they would rather pick fights than fruits. Alas, it may be true that you can take the pirate out of the raging sea, but you cannot take the raging sea out of the pirate. Another area in which the calamity changed the land is in the transformation of Woad Whisper Canyon from a shallow valley accessed from western La Noscea in 1.0 to a gorge with waterfalls now accessed from Middle La Noscea. Together with this change further down south, the land was cleaved so deeply here that vertical cliffs, now called the Descent, were carved into the land. Due to these cliffs, a skylift had to be built in order to continue transporting goods across Middle La Noscea. On hot days, workers from both the Summerford Farms and the Skylift now take respite in the cool mists of the Woad Whisper Canyon Falls. Now, before I move on to some of the best scenery spots in Middle La Noscea, one last point of interest, or disinterest, might be that of the Foremast, the newest Yellow Jacket watchtower established after the calamity. Its name draws from nautical vocabulary, representing Limsa Lominsa's resolve to lead the fight for Eorzea. But do you know of any quests or interactions that brings the Warrior of Light here? I don't recall any, but I may be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Most definitely an undisputed scenic spot would be on the shores of Galadion Bay, looking outwards towards Limsa Lominsa. This spot presents a beautiful view in most weather conditions, but is particularly great during sunset or on a clear night where the canvas of stars will be slowly making their way across the night sky. From around the same spot looking inland, the glowing Etheirys of Summerford shimmers and reminds us of the life that has returned to the land. On some nights, you may even spot the moon as it makes its way across the sky. For a fuller panoramic view of Limsa, I would recommend above the gates of Summerford, looking outwards towards the bay. But regardless of where you admire Limsa from, there is one last connection back to the Galadion. The biggest structure you see is that of the mizzenmast inn, the drowning wrench, and on top of all of that, where Maelstrom Command lies. Limsa Lominsa was literally built up from the sea, using the ship Galadion as her foundation. It is said that the Galadion's mizzenmast was hollowed out, repurposed, and fortified to the structure we see today. Think about this the next time you admire Limsa Lominsa from afar. But do you enjoy any other scenery spots in Middle La Noscea? Share it with me and also others in the comments below. And that concludes this episode of Love Letters to Hydaelyn. What do you guys think of the video? Did I miss out any landmarks you thought I should have featured? If you want to see more of such content as I make my way through Hydaelyn and Etheirys, like and subscribe to get notified. If I got anything wrong, please let me know. Also, feel free to share your own memories of Middle La Noscea in the comments. And together we can build some sort of internet written love letter / oral history of this land, signed, sealed, and delivered from the Warriors of Light to Hydaelyn herself. See you in the next video, and may you ever walk in the beauty of Hydaelyn.